buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, where we talk about Alaskan issues each and every day right here on the program, the only statewide radio show that focuses exclusively on that stuff each and every morning. Well, I guess for Firearms Friday, we deal with firearms. You know what I mean. You don't interrupt my flow, baby. Don't interrupt my flow. All right. Well, today we're getting into it hot and heavy. We got two guests this morning. In hour one, we're going to be talking here in just a hot second with Jim Anderson, who is running for the mayor's race down in the Cosmic Hamlet by the sea. Homer, Alaska. Beautiful end of the road, Homer. We're going to get some insight into what's going on down there, and we're going to talk with him here in just a second and get a feel for all the things that folks down there are paying attention to. And then in hour two, we're going to be joined by our friend, State Senator Mike Shower, for the Shower Hour of Power, just because we like lyricism. Anyway, we're going to be talking with him and getting his take on all the hot stuff that's going on in the last week or so, and we'll be doing that in hour two. Tomorrow's program, Keith Fonz is going to be joining us. Keith is going to be coming on board and sharing his adventure in Fairbanks over the whole Buttgate 2.0 scandal. I mean, Buttgate. Where he has now been hounded off of social media by a couple of the participants in that whole thing. So much for being tolerant and being an advocate for free speech, right? So anyway, we'll talk with him about that tomorrow, and also working on some other guests as well. So that's coming up on the show then tomorrow. So, and then of course, Firearms Friday, I'm still working on trying to get Dr. John Lott back on the program, and we will see, what we shall see, huh? We'll see how that goes. All right. Well, let's continue on. Let's get things ready to rock and roll. Let's jump on over here to our guest. Jim Anderson is joining us here this morning, and we're about to talk about, wood ticks, lunatics, and politics, as we like to say around here. Jim Anderson joins us this morning to discuss. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good, Michael. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on board. This is, this is kind of a fun time because I'm not that familiar with Homer politics, but since I have adopted Homer as my hometown, it's my adopted hometown. I'm from Fairbanks originally. I probably should become somewhat familiar with some of the politics that are going on down there, and I paid a little bit of attention. But I always like to say that no matter where you are in the state, even if it's happening in a community hundreds of miles from your hometown, you should always pay attention, because as goes that area, so could your area go. So we've got to learn a little bit here and get stuff going on. So Jim, you're running for, you're running for the mayor's race. And so first and foremost, let's get a little bit of a take on, who you are, where you came from, before we get down into some of the details.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. I was born and raised in Homer, so born in Homer Hospital, grew up here, went to Homer High School, Graduated in 1981. I had one goal. I wanted to be an actor. I grew up in a small town, grew up on a homestead. My family moved up here in 1959. 5 families, my mother, 3 sisters, and a brother, and all of their families moved from Arizona, New Mexico to raise cattle. And my father got the first grazing lease, 1,580-acre grazing lease from the state of Alaska that they ever issued. And we all kind of spread out around the Kenai Peninsula. My parents homesteaded out on the North Fork, which is between Homer and Anchor Point, before the North Fork went all the way through. So I grew up in the school system here, very tight community, lots of arts, lots of fishing. We had some cattle. It was a very close-knit community, had a lot of friends. Everybody knew everyone. So I left high school, lived in Japan for a couple of years, went to school in Hawaii for a couple of years, ended up going to acting school, and then got out of acting school in New York City in 1987, came back to Homer, was involved for a couple of years, and ended up getting married to a hometown girl that had grown up here, born and raised in Homer, and was living in Arizona at the time. So I got married and then got a real career in corporate America. Worked for UPS for 22 years, left UPS after I got my retirement, and went to work for Duke Nuclear Energy. So both of my corporate careers were in regulatory compliance, one in import-export, one in cyber analytics for the nuclear scene. So then I was supposed to go to the Middle East on a contract, and COVID hit, and everything kind of shut down. So I did some consulting, worked for my cousin in Texas for a little bit, and then my wife and I decided, let's just go back to Homer because we have a lot of family here, a lot of friends, relatives, a good network. And our only daughter, who had grown up in Charleston, South Carolina, because we lived in Anchorage when she was born, moved to South Carolina. I was working for UPS. She grew up, married a young man that was born and raised in Kodiak. They met in Charleston. Long story short, we have 2 grandsons. They moved back to Kodiak. He flies C-130Js for the Coast Guard. My wife and I have been back in Homer for 3 years, and we're here to stay. We'll still travel and get out now and then, but we love being back in Homer. And as soon as I got back, I got involved in the local scene. I am a board member on the Homer Council on the Arts. I'm a board member on the Chamber of Commerce. It's really important to me, kind of the future of Homer. Grew up here, very interested in what is happening. And of course, a lot of hot topics on the table. And so there's been a lot of change, but sometimes the more things change, the more things stay the same. And, you mentioned the little hamlet by the sea, and that has been Homer's moniker for a long time. And of course, like most small towns, there's the group that wants a lot of change and to see change and growth happen. There's those that want to see moderate change, and then there's those that want to see no change. Now that we're here, let's close the door and let's not see any more change because we've found Shangri-La, so let's not allow anybody else to come. And then there actually is, and this was in a survey recently done through this Homer study that the city is doing on the comprehensive plan. There is a faction of people in Homer that actually would like to see it go back and reverse the change a little bit and kind of go back to how things were, 10, 20 years ago. But there were 3 things in this community that really shaped my life. One was agriculture, because I grew up on a cattle ranch, and I bought my first car because I was involved in 4-H and took a steer to the state fair every year and got grand champion one year and bought my first car. The other thing was sports. I have 3 brothers. 2 of them were involved in state wrestling. I actually was a swimmer. And my coach was brutal, but she taught me that the harder you work, the more you can accomplish. And take off the victim hat, stop complaining about things, just apply yourself, work harder. She also instilled a great work ethic in me. And then the arts. I started playing the piano at age 4, was involved in theater, in choir, went on to do things. And the skills that I learned at acting school in LA and New York, I actually applied in the corporate scene, because those tactics were just how to communicate, how to collaborate, how to have confidence, how to interact better as human beings. And so I am a big youth advocate, and I have theater arts-based leadership curriculum for 8th through 12th graders that I've been doing for almost 30 years. And because I think it's really important that we invest in our youth and that we get them out of their devices more and into interactive communication. And so I'm really passionate about that. Running for mayor was never on my radar, but I am very passionate about getting involved. And my policy is I don't care about your politics. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care about your socioeconomic status. Let's come together and talk about what we have in common and what we can do to make Homer a better place. Homer's always been known as an arts community, whether it's culinary arts, great restaurants, visual arts, performing arts. And there's some people that think we're just a really great, diverse community and we all get along and everything's kumbaya. But there is diversity, and that's what makes Homer great. But there is there are some opposing sides, and I think, especially in the last 5 years or so, we've become a little more divided on what we think is best for Homer. And, so that's why I decided to get involved. A few people kind of poked me a little bit, and at first I thought, when we should have choice. Choice is good. It's good to have options. And when people are getting into a political race unopposed and there's only one choice, that's kind of disappointing. So I entered this race thinking, you know what, I'm just going to raise the tide, bring some energy, add some options. But the more I started talking to people and talked to the fire chief and the port director and the city manager and some of the local builders and people, I really became passionate, and I'm excited to be in this race and excited to make a difference.
Right. Well, and this is the thing. Homer is a very unique town. I mean, I often tell the story to people when we're discussing Homer. I had never been to Homer. I'm born and raised third generation. I mean, the whole thing. But I lived in Fairbanks. And so Homer was quite a trek, from Fairbanks. And so it wasn't until I moved down to the Mat-Su about 10 years ago that I actually got a chance to come to Homer. Chris Story, who's our mutual friend, he had been helping my radio show in Anchorage at the time. And so we became good friends, and he invited me down, and I went down there, and, there was just something different about Homer. There was just something that really, within the first couple hours, I looked at my wife and said, I think I'd like to retire down here. And she laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're nutty." And then just a few hours later, she said, "You might be right. This is, kind of a pretty cool community." But it's diverse. It's different. It's not an enclave of one belief system or another, philosophical, political, religious. It's a whole different kind of critter. And so there's a lot of unique opportunities, and there's a lot of unique challenges down there. I find it, I have to laugh because I didn't envision myself as an actor, although I did pursue different theaters and acting things when I was younger. And I have also utilized those in my various aspects of life. The world is a stage, right? Life is a performance. And so those things definitely help. And when you talk about working with kids in that area, that definitely was near and dear to my heart, because that was some of my favorite memories growing up, is working in theater and doing things like that. But we're going to go to break here in just a second. So I want to, yes, it's the fluoride in the drinking water, Brian. That's what's different about Homer. It's in the water. We're gonna take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about some of the things. First of all, I want to talk about the survey you just discussed, because I find that's interesting, and it's not just a Homer thing. That's kind of the way it is in a lot of areas that have wilderness and some pristine stuff and some things. Some people just don't want any change, although change is inevitable. But we need to talk about that and get a little bit more details and maybe some of the specific issues that are facing Homer. So we're going to continue here. Jim Anderson is our guest candidate for Homer Mayor. We'll return in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return right after this.
I'm going to grab that sheet. Give me 1 second.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Nobody has answered my question. Do you hear the bumpers and the music this morning? Geez, you guys just ignore me. I ask questions in the chat room and you guys just ignore me. What's up with that? What is up with that? I know my video is herky jerky. That's a function of the computer right now. I'm gonna have to. Well, new computer time. We all know that that's coming. I was able to track down all the audio issues yesterday after the show, and we're back up where we are. My computer's running good, but just not sure what is up with the herky jerky. It was smooth for a little bit this morning as I was testing it, and then it just got. Now I feel like I'm max headroom, and I'm jumping. Look, see, I'm blurring all over the place. So anyway, we're gonna have to live with the herky jerkiness here for a little bit. I'm hoping to get a new computer put together this weekend for the studio, and we'll go from there. How about that? How about them apples, huh? How about them apples? All right. I see that Jim is back with me now, and we're going to pull him back into the pull him back into the chat, and we'll go from there. Come on, one more time. Let me mash that button one more time. There we go. Look at that. Everything is perfect. There's no problems here. All right. So Jim, thanks for coming on board and joining us. It is kind of funny, going all over the world and then, meeting people from Alaska and other parts of the states and other parts of the world. Isn't that just the way it is? Isn't it? Every time you go outside, you always end up bumping into somebody. I mean, I do anyway. It seems like every time I go outside, I always end up bumping into somebody from Alaska. And either they're visiting or they're down there for a while or whatever. But they always seem to say, I want to come back. I want to come back. It's
The world is small.
It's hard. It's hard to leave this state, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The world becomes smaller, and I've traveled all over, especially in my corporate career. And I remember being in Hong Kong once, and there was a delegation from Alaska that came over, and that I just happened to meet up with. I was there on a UPS trip and met up with a group of Alaska that had come over and was meeting at the ambassador's house in Hong Kong back in the day. So you never know where Alaskans are going to pop up. But we always have that pioneer spirit and very friendly people.
Yeah, it's like we're the bad pennies. We always turn up somewhere. We just can't help it.
Yeah.
I am excited, like I said earlier, to hear more in future interviews or discussions about your theater-based leadership program, because I think that's important. Getting kids out of their shells and doing things. I mean, I know for me, it was a huge outlet when I was younger to be able to do that. And I'm a voice actor now. I discovered that was a much easier thing than to try to go to LA and compete with all the actors down there. But I did become a voice actor, and that is part and parcel of it. But like you said, you end up using a lot of this stuff in your life. And I think that's a fascinating discovery, is that, those things, those skills, especially the confidence, and even when you don't feel confident, you're acting, you're projecting confidence. I think that's some important stuff there.
It absolutely is. And I tell audiences all the time, I don't do these workshops. I do boot camps, and they're 5-day boot camps that are 8 hours a day. They're immersed in this process, and they're basically learning production numbers from Broadway musicals. So they're learning all of the lyrics and the choreography and the staging, and they're working on set and lighting and sound and the technical aspects. And I tell parents, I say, I don't do this to create singers and dancers, and you don't have to sing and dance to do it. I create better human beings that can interact. And over the years that I've done this, I have hundreds of kids that have gone on to medicine and education and all walks of life. And they always come back and say, wow, the confidence and the communication skills I learned were key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you hear the ding, we're about to return to radio. Brian says, were you a shy youth? A shy youth? No, I was definitely not a shy youth.
No, or a shy youth.
Yeah, that's why I embraced theater, because I was not shy, and I wanted to have an outlet for my gregariousness, if you want to use the $5 word. There's the $5 word. All right. Well, we're going to rejoin. Here we go. We're 8 seconds out. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty Based, Free Thinking Radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things that you're supposed to do. Let's go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
A pain in the... Well, that's just true. I mean, that is just true, actually. Welcome back to the program, the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. We're continuing our discussions this morning with Jim Anderson, who is a candidate for Homer Mayor. In fact, I should put that up here. Candidate for Homer Mayor. We're talking about the the politics of the community and the big issues. And Jim, let's talk a little bit about some of the bigger issues. You just talked a little bit about this survey of what people want, and of course, there's always going to be the people who are the kind of the preservationists. We don't want it to change at all. There's people who want to leap forward and make it Los Angeles, make a place, more like LA. Yeah. And then there's those that are like, oh, the good old days. I'd rather just go back to the way it was with horse buggies and no telephones. I mean, it happens. But it sounds like you guys have a bit of a split there. So give us the breakdown of this and what were they asking?
Yeah, just real quick, the survey that was done by this group that was hired by the city to rewrite the comprehensive plan that was penned back in 2018. The top three themes of what people like about Homer is the community, small town feel, family and friends, the natural beauty, and the access to outdoors. The three things that are most challenging are overall cost of living, the infrastructure and transportation challenges, and the lack of affordable housing. The top three things 20 years from now, what is your ideal Homer like? They say Homer has retained its small town character, affordable housing, and walkable, vibrant downtown. So they kind of like the vision of 20 years from now. One of the biggest themes right now is housing. But in that, the statistics from the survey results, 37% want moderate growth. 7% want significant growth, 27% want minimal growth, 8% want no growth, and 18% or 4% want to go backwards, and then 18% are in the other category, whatever that means. So the majority still wants moderate wants growth of some type. So that's encouraging. But I would say probably one of the biggest things right now is the affordability to live in Homer, the cost of goods, and then the housing. And I have to say, I returned back to Homer in October of 21, and I was working for my friends John and Sarah Faulkner as the food and beverage director out at Land's End. That's kind of what brought me back in the middle of just post-pandemic. And, I was a waiter and put myself through acting school waiting in tables, but I had never really run a restaurant, but I'd run corporate entities and run large stuff in my corporate job. So it was easy for me to go in. I'm a real people person, and we really made some transformations. But every single day that winter of 21, 22, there were people coming in from all over the US. And when I would say, well, what brought you to Homer? They're looking for land. People have been buying up land left and right. Some to just warehouse the land, many to start building whether it's a cabin or there's some luxury homes. Homer is now $1 million market, and it never used to be. There's $1 million homes here in Homer. And we're talking everything from a fixer-upper that would be a quarter of the price down south to mega mansions and really nice luxury homes. But people are coming in. Homer has been discovered, and for various reasons, some to just kind of park their money somewhere for some tax incentives, and others to have a bug out place when the zombie apocalypse happens.
Right. No, I had to laugh because when I first went to Homer, in fact, that first couple trips, on the second trip, we actually looked at some property, and I'm kicking myself now because I should have bought it. That was 10 years ago, and a place where I thought, boy, that's a little expensive, at 300,000, and I was
triple.
Now it's $700,000-$800,000, for the same place. And I'm like, oh, I shoulda, woulda, but Homer has become kind of I don't know, the Riviera of the Pacific Northwest or something. Like you said, there's a lot of things happening there. How do we address the housing issue? Because I have a lot of friends now in Homer, and I spend a lot of time down there. And what I hear from business owners and others time and time and time again is that they are in such a crunch for workers. And part of that crunch for workers is not that they can't find people who would be willing to work, is that they have no place to live while they're working. And so what is the fix? And Homer, the city of Homer, of course, is much smaller than the area of Homer, but what can the city do, and what would your vision be as the city mayor to try and facilitate some more affordable housing, and how do we fix this problem while still retaining, as you said, the nature, the flavor of Homer itself?
Yeah, well, there are people that are trying to address this, and the 3 years that I've been Homer, in Homer, you're absolutely right. There are kids and people from all over the U.S. and all over the world that would love to come to Homer. They're filling out applications, they're wanting to come and work, but they don't have transportation when they get here, and they can't. First of all, can't find housing, and the housing that they do find is very expensive. So there are builders and there are people, including some of my family members, that are trying to address this problem. There's people that are right now. I have a friend who has carved out a little neighborhood just out east of Homer within the city limits, trying to create entry-level homes. But these entry-level homes are going to go for a little more than $400,000. Well, your average person, that they can't afford to get into that home. And Homer is definitely a tourist community. There's a lot of activities. This is the playground for Alaskans, and then it is really the playground for people from all over the world on their bucket list. Homer is definitely part of their Alaskan experience. So we have to provide at least seasonal housing for these seasonal workers that come here in the summertime. And Homer is expanding its shoulder and winter season. So we are also probably the Airbnb capital of Alaska. Airbnbs have just shot up everywhere. And so there's a faction of people that say, well, it's not fair. The Airbnb people, they kick you out in the summertime and then they'll rent to you in the wintertime, but there's no year-round housing. So there are people trying to address that. And one of the issues that will address this is to create more density with property. So if you have 5 acres or 2 acres or an acre in city limits, and you want to build a mother-in-law suite, or you want to build a cabin or an apartment or a duplex or a fourplex or something to densify your area, people are wanting to do that, but we have some outdated city code and zoning that needs to be addressed, and the city council is aware of that. They're looking at that. It's part of the comprehensive plan, but it really needs to be addressed at the very least in tandem of this plan rewrite, but really should be addressed prior to the completion. And sometimes a lot of these builders experience red tape and get bogged down in a lot of questioning. If I were elected mayor, one of the first things I would do, because housing is at one of the top things of the priorities, is put a task force together and say, hey, let's get the experts, let's get some builders, let's get some people in all aspects of the housing industry and the realtors and city and public works, and let's come together and let's listen to the people that are actually trying to do it, because people get tired of coming in and hitting up against bureaucracy and getting bogged down in the process. And it's very, very expensive. There's a monopoly on utilities and water, sewer. And so I think really coming together and providing incentives for people who are trying to address the housing issue. What are those incentives? There's a long list of potential incentives, whether it's tax incentives, kickbacks. We just need to get together and start talking about what does that look like, and how do we make it easier to enter the housing market for builders and for people that are trying to, whether it's tiny homes or areas where seasonal workers can be here. And then as we expand our tourism year round, we definitely need more year-round housing. But not enough people are coming to the table, and there's a lot of frustration and there's a lot of finger pointing. They say that you should be spending 30% of your income on rent or on a mortgage. There was a very thorough study done recently, and it shows that the Homer market is in the 22 to 24%. So we really don't have a crisis. The cost of living is going up everywhere, but we do have a shortage of housing, and we need to be able to get more housing in so that people have more options.
Now, Jim, you and I have never met, and you probably don't know too much about me, but I'll just say, I'm a libertarian, and so I have a healthy distrust of kind of government and everything else. And even when I was looking at property 10 years ago, I had decided initially, I mean, I didn't want to buy inside the city of Homer simply because I didn't want to be told what to do with my property. If I wanted to put up a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do. Because that seems to be a problem. And this seems to be a theme. I served on the Fairbanks and Star Borough Assembly, and I saw a lot of what happened there with the between the public works and the road planners and the comprehensive plan and everything, the government struggling to try and tell people what to do with their properties because they had a vision, although they didn't have the powers to do what they wanted to do. They had the vision that was better for us than what we knew for ourselves. And I find that that's sometimes part of the problem. I mean, is city planning standing in the way of solving this? I know we want to maintain the flavor of Homer and the feel it, and I understand that. But again, as I said earlier, change is inevitable, right? And you're either going with the change or you're fighting the change. And so, I mean, how much of this is a planning problem or a code problem, some kind of thing like that, where it doesn't mesh with the vision of some group of elected officials or bureaucrats, what their vision is? I mean, how much of that is in conflict where it's the vision of the bureaucrats or the planning commission or whoever it is versus what people actually want to do? How much of that is actually in conflict?
Yeah, it's really letting government getting out of the way and letting people, hey, I'm all for beautification. We had a guy from Strongtown that works with small cities, and he came into Homer and a very legitimate process, highly popular, and has had some real success with other cities of Homer and similar size. And he came in, and his assessment of Homer was, you have a world-class view. Nobody can dispute that. You've got this beautiful area here, but you drive down Pioneer Avenue, and it's like, what is Homer trying to say? You've got a nice little spot here, and then you've got a big empty lot, and then you've got a building that needs to be torn down, and then you've got, there's just kind of this mishmash of, it's not this walkable, inviting, it's got bits and pieces of that, but then it's kind of disjointed. So I'm all for beautification, for sidewalks, for density, for making Homer a charming, walkable, beautiful spot for locals and for tourists. But you also need to get out of the way and let people build and let people densify on their property. And like you said, don't micromanage how they do that.
No, I mean, I would agree with that. And I have to laugh. And again, I don't want to poo-poo anything.
Yeah.
But I will say that, this idea of walkable cities, and we heard that in Fairbanks. Okay. Now, Fairbanks is different than Homer, obviously, but let's face it, 7 months of the year, it's 20 below or colder in Fairbanks, right? So I don't see a lot of what they wanted to eliminate all these parking lots and have a centralized parking lot in downtown. You'd have to walk 5 blocks to get, and I'm like, no mother's going to put her kid in a stroller and walk 5 blocks at 30 below, right? To go to this downtown store location. So there has to be some balance there. I mean, again, in Homer, the tourist season is, 4 months long or so. And so, yes, we want something that they can enjoy and they can see. But at the same time, folks who live there have got to live there year round. And so it's got to work in both areas, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think from a walkability standpoint, I mean, Homer, the core of downtown Homer, you've got Old Town Homer, which is down by Bishop's Beach, by the waterfront. There's a whole group of shops and restaurants and stuff like that. Then you've got Pioneer Avenue, and then you've got this big empty spot kind of in the middle. There's 17 acres of undeveloped land right in the middle of Homer. And then you've got the bypass, and you've got the Safeway and the post office. There is an opportunity, excuse me. And I've actually been working with developers and investors and looking at developing that core between Old Town and Pioneer. And there is an opportunity to have a much more walkable, friendly area. And of course, you're not going to create, this whole park in one part of town and then take a trolley or bus. There does have to be a balance, but
Right.
there's a lot of development that can happen in a responsible way to make the traffic flow and make it more safe to walk on the roads. They didn't have sidewalks until, after I left Homer. And so they're trying to make it safer and more attractive and more user friendly to be
Right.
downtown.
Right.
And as you know, in Homer in the summertime, everything happens on the Spit. That's where people go. They come into Homer, they play a little in downtown, but they want to go out on the Spit. They want to get the shops. They want to get out on the water, and so the Spit really gets flooded. And it's trying to balance that and get people more in downtown, because there's some real gems. We have breweries, we have great restaurants, we have some really cool shops, but they're kind of spread out all over the place, and trying to get a theme and pull stuff together.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do for sure, especially when you have to take into consideration, private property rights and everything else, and people's own personal vision for what they're doing with their property that they're renting from the government every year. Let's continue on. Jim Anderson is our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. One final segment dead ahead. We'll talk to him about his top 3 things that he would like to tackle as a mayor. And then we'll get his vision, and then a wrap up here in hour 1. Jim Anderson is our guest, mayoral candidate for the city of Homer. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right. We're in the break right now. Jim Anderson is our guest, and we'll continue here. Jeannie says, I love the theater. I'm assuming she's talking about Pier 1 Theater. It reminds me of the Orca Theater in Soldotna. I think that's a cool thing as well. Greg says we should tear down the Herc, and I didn't know what that was. And then he said, that's the condemned old concrete building on the corner of Pioneer and Sterling. Let's see who else. Ice Snare Wolf says it's not that you should spend at least 20 to 30% of your income, but not spend more than that. Yeah, I mean, it should be, the upper limit is 30%, I think is
right. No more than.
But yeah. Greg agreed with me and said city planning seems to be standing in the way. And, I'll be honest, again, not to point fingers or call anybody out, but that as well was my experience in working in Fairbanks, was that they had this comprehensive plan that they spent millions of dollars on, deciding what was great for everybody there. Unfortunately, people didn't really want to participate in their comprehensive. The property owners were like, well, that's great for you. I'm glad you have a plan, but it's my property, even though I'm only renting it from the government because I got to pay taxes on it. But, it's a hard thing. Everybody's got to buy in on something like that. Everybody's got to buy in. Brian says everyone wants affordable housing until they get affordable housing in their community. Well, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No.
It's this is a challenge, and I've watched it over the last 10 years in Homer. I've watched this challenge come out. Like I said, I'm kind of kicking myself because I could have probably swallowed buying a piece of property down there and making the payments on it and doing everything else, and probably, turned it and made some money. You could have, would have, should have. I don't know as anybody could have seen the meteoric rise of what's going on in Homer. You get the big names. You're seeing, big names of people. The Tire King is there, and Jack Brown, Snoop Dogg. And I mean, you hear all these different things of people who are buying stuff up, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Let's see. Brian says the walkable and bike path issues comes up everywhere, even in the Hook, which is the fish hook, Wasilla fish hook up here in Wasilla. He says, which puts the concept in conflict with the reason that people move here, to be able to ride their quads and sleds. And that's true too. I mean, that was true in Fairbanks. We had bike paths. We spent millions of dollars building all these bike paths, which are only usable for about 15, 16, 17 weeks a year. And then the rest of the year, the other 40 weeks a year, for 35, 40 weeks a year, oh, the non-motorized vehicle. I mean, come on. Come on. There's got to be some balance here. You've got to take into account that we're all not in downtown San Diego, right? You can have a walking park wherever you want to be. But, we live in a place where that's only viable for a certain portion of the year to serve a certain segment of the population, transient tourist population at that. And so this idea that every place needs to be, like walkable downtown San Antonio or Charleston, as you mentioned, South Carolina, they've got these big walking things. Well, that's great. But that's not, it's not a year-round thing here. We have to be able to have this hybrid type system.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Homer, it's just that very kind of small little stamp right in the middle, because you do have such a recreational hub outside of Out East End Road. There's snow machine trails and there's ski trails and bike trails. So we really do have the best of both worlds. And how I see it, we can keep our nice little small hamlet in that very core downtown area and then just really diversify and have so many other things that are outside of that core city area.
Yeah, and we need, again, it has to be a balance. And that's the thing which means that I think that the people who are the huge fans of city planning and comprehensive plans and things like that, they need to come to the realization that while those plans, it's the difference between the theoretical and the reality, right? The theory of this comprehensive plan and we've got the idea and everything else is great on paper, but when you have to live it or you have to pay for it, that's the other thing. Who pays for all these things? It becomes, reality smacks you right in the face. And so we've got to have some give and take in that. And again, kind of create some kind of hybridized plan that does both things.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the former mayors yesterday, and she said, I always told the people, we'll do anything that you are willing to pay for. We'll bring anything to Homer that you are willing to pay for as citizens. And that it's a big deal when you think about who's paying for it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're coming back up into the break here. We're about 10 seconds from the ding, which means we're about 35 seconds from rejoining the radio. Jim Anderson is our guest. Jim, do you have a campaign website or anything? I didn't even ask you that. I should have asked you.
I have a campaign Facebook page, Anderson for Mayor on Facebook.
Okay, Anderson for Mayor on Facebook. All right, we'll highlight that when we get back, but we're going to talk about your top three, the big three things. If you were put into office, what are you going to do? Let's jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share. You can like this show or share it from whatever platform you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. Do it all. Let's get back to it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
That guy is so mean to me. I don't know why. What did I do to him? All right. Let's continue. Jim Anderson is our guest candidate for borough mayor. You can find him on Facebook at Anderson for Mayor. Right? We can do that there. Anderson for city mayor. So just Google Anderson for city mayor, and you can do that. Jim, if you're elected, give me. Let's talk about the top three things. I mean, I think we've hit on it a little bit, but give us an overview of maybe the top three things that you'd like to target as mayor. From day one. What are you tackling? What are you listening to? What are you hearing? And what is your plan for that?
Well, here's the number one thing, and that is education. Educating the citizens of Homer. I think I feel strongly that the mayor's primary role is to be the town crier, the advocate, the cheerleader, the ambassador for Homer. And in all of my corporate years, there's two important things. And this is whether you're an individual or whether you're a large corporation. And that's internal and external brand alignment. So what that means to me is that before you want other people to like you or align with you, you have to like and align with yourself. So the city of Homer, we say, we're open for business. We love commerce. We love people to come and buy our stuff, and we love the revenue and all that stuff. But we're not saying that with our actions and how we allow businesses to come in and how we allow responsible growth. So the first thing I would do is get out and have town hall meetings, create a task force and say, okay, let's stop focusing on what's wrong, on what's bad, on what we don't like. Let's focus on what's good. Let's find what we have in common. Let's start, whatever you fertilize in life grows. And so there's people out there fertilizing lack and fertilizing discontent and fertilizing, this victimhood of I can't get ahead because of this and that and this person. So let's take the victim hat off. Let's get together, because anytime even a combative person that views far differently than I do politically or any other way, when I really sit down and talk to them and we talk about what we really want in life, we find that we have a lot more in common than what it is that we differ in. So first thing is, let's get together. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. We are different. We view things differently, but what do we want that we have in common? And let's quit the rumors and let's quit devaluing people because of our opinion of them or because of what we've heard about them. Let's actually bring them to the table, talk about it, get together and figure out what's best for Homer. So advocate, town hall meetings, get the people to actually talk, because in this recent survey, only 560 people responded. We need more people involved in the solutions. The second thing that I would do is really with the city council, because the mayor leads the city council meetings, is the two things that are my superpowers are I'm a connector of people and I bring energy with me wherever I go. So it's like, okay, people don't want to come to these meetings, whether it's the city planning or whether it's the city council, because they're long and sometimes it just seems that they don't move ahead, and there's well-meaning people there. But let's energize these meetings. Let's move the path, move things forward. Let's kind of, clean out the arteries, if you will, and get the blood flowing a little quicker, a little stronger, and tasking people to come in, tagging key people and saying, hey, I need you to come to this meeting. I need you to be a voice here. I need you to listen to this. The mayor really has to pull people together, get the city planning, get the city council meetings moving, and getting out of the way and bringing the experts in to really help solve these problems. Another focus is just kind of this generational gap. Because we're a hospitality community, because we're a tourist community, there's a lot of young kids. There's this whole group of 18 through 30-year-olds that kind of feel disenfranchised. They're coming here to provide all of these wonderful things for all of these wealthy people to come and enjoy, but they're barely getting by. They're spending $750 a month for a dry cabin with an outhouse. Then they have to, scramble to find a place to live in the wintertime or go back home to Oregon or Maine or wherever they came from. And they really don't feel a part of the community. And the older generation is complaining about all they do is they're going out and partying and doing all this stuff. But what are we doing to pull them into the community? What are we doing to inspire and unite these young kids and to give them a reason to make better life decisions and connect them with people in their 40s and their 50s and create mentoring programs? There's a lot of entrepreneurs in Homer and a huge entrepreneurial spirit. You talked in the beginning of the show about this vibe and this energy. Homer is palpable with this energy. People will laugh, but, we were called this Cosmic Hamlet by the sea. There is an energy in Homer. And people come here and they're like inspired and they want to do things and they want to create things, whether it's business or art or food or whatever. And we need to allow that to happen and do inspiring things for this younger generation to want to get involved, because all of us, each generation had their party days. Thank God Facebook and social media wasn't around when you and I were in high school, Michael. But
what are you saying? What are you saying? I was a perfect angel. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. And
no,
I want to engage the people. I want to inspire the youth and create better connectivity with the generational gap. And I want to really make Homer really come into its own in this whole cultural arts destination of Alaska. And that's everything arts, culinary, visual, wearable, historical, performing, all of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Homer is a destination for all that. And there is a bit of a divide, again, between that younger generation, because how do you expect your kids in your community to be able to stay there I mean, I guess unless they're, living in mom and dad's house and doing everything else. But how do you expect them to stay there for so long if they can't afford to go out on their own? And that's part of the problem. And again, I think the housing is the cornerstone of a lot of the problems that are there. If it was more affordable to live there, then you could have more people and there'd be a reason to stay. But
It's
yeah,
huge.
no, I agree. I agree that, I think those are all key issues. And what's the response been so far? We got about 2.5 minutes here. I just want real quick. What's your response been so far as you've gone and talked to people and knocked on doors and everything else?
Well, I do have to say, and this is not coming from a place of ego at all. It's just I have friends on both sides. I have, I really don't know many strangers. I like to meet with people. I like to talk with people. The response has been overwhelming from those that I know that are more conservative, that are like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're running. We're glad we have an option. We support you. To my dear friends that are more liberal and people in between that are like, wow, that's interesting that you're running. We'll talk about it. Tell me why. And once we get into the conversation, they're like, okay, I see you have really good intentions. Sometimes a fresh perspective is great. Excuse me. So overall, the response has been great. And I think overall, people like to know that they have an option. And it has raised the conversation. If I had not joined the race, there would be no conversation. There would only be one person running.
Right.
And people would then want to gripe about, oh, we have no choice. Well, what did you do? Why didn't you run for mayor?
Right. There should always be a choice. Anytime I see even an incumbent that I support, when they don't have a challenger, I'm disappointed. You should always have a challenger. All right, we're down to the last a minute and a half here or so, Jim. So I want to give you a chance. Your final elevator pitch to people. Where do they find out about you? What's your final pitch? Give it to us right now.
Absolutely. I am absolutely for growth and change. Change is inevitable. Growth is happening. So either we as the citizens of Homer control the narrative, or we get bogged down in disagreement and then people come in and they force change on us, or they come in a way that is not cohesive to what is best for those of us who live here year round. I want to know what is the value and what is the perk for being a year-round citizen of Homer, not just someone who invests in land or has an Airbnb and is here 1 week a year, but there should be a perk and an incentive for people who work year-round here in Homer and add to the economy. There should be a welcoming doormat for people that want to come in and create growth, but it needs to be done in a responsible way that we set the narrative. So we've got to come together. We need the port expansion. We need to support the marine industry. We need to have affordable housing, but we're only going to do that if we get government out of the way and we bring people in together.
Jim Anderson, candidate for mayor. Anderson for city mayor on Facebook. Back with more after this. Sorry, Jim, I had a hard break there. I had to jump.
No. Yeah, I got you. Sorry.
So
they're always tricky.
No, timing is everything. Sometimes people, you tell people 2 minutes and they're like, okay, great. And then they have no idea how long 2 minutes is.
Right.
I give you the last couple minutes here for a final bite at the apple. Maybe there's something I didn't touch on or something you wanted to bring up. But this is your opportunity for you and me and 80 of our closest friends on the internet. And for people who are listening to the podcast later to come back on. So your final bite at the apple here this morning for anything we hit on or didn't hit on, et cetera.
Yes, I do want to say that here in Alaska, the reason people are buying land and they're vacationing here and they're coming here, they're exploring possibilities of what do I do in case of a crisis in the lower 48? What do I do when I retire and I want to enjoy my life? As people that live here in Alaska, sustainability is a priority that we really didn't touch on. And Homer, with this port expansion, we're at the end of the road. It's expensive to get things here. What are we doing to be self-sustaining? If the road closes down, are we supporting agriculture? We have a lot of growers here. We need to really look about from a fishing, from a hunting, from a growing perspective, how can we become more self-sustaining? And, because, when things get tough and the ships aren't coming into anchorage, what are we going to do? And we need to quit devaluing each other. There's such a, we can't really affect things on a national or a global level, but we can affect things in our own community. So if we don't start tearing down these silos, because the first question people ask is, well, what party or what are you registered? Or what church do you go to? We categorize people based on their beliefs or based on their background. And we have to look at their character, and we have to look at what their values are, not what their political sway is or what church they go to or how much money they have. And so we've got to break down these silos and come together. That's huge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, we can always, and this is something that some of the listeners have fought back on me on, that, we shouldn't just be polite. We shouldn't just try and find the commonalities. Where has that gotten us? It's gotten us to where, look, I believe that you can find commonality with anybody, regardless
Absolutely.
of the personal philosophy. And you can disagree with somebody. You can disagree with somebody vociferously and still be able to find some common ground and sit down and have a beer somewhere and, be able to discuss some things. We're all got to live here. And we've got to stop looking at each other as the other, right? The outsider, we've got to stop doing that, because that's what
the Homer I grew up in.
Yeah.
It used to be that way.
That's what's killing us. Is that, this polarization has become so strident and so black and white of, if you don't agree with me, then you're the enemy, that you're evil, that your house should burn down, kind of thing, is just, we've got to stop that. We really do. It's not getting us anywhere, and it's not doing the right thing for our children. And it's not creating a better world. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah. The bad example for our kids. I mean, how can we expect them to behave in a polite, good way if they see really bad examples from us?
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. So Jim Anderson, you can find him on Facebook, Anderson for City Mayor.
Anderson for Mayor. Yeah.
And Anderson for Mayor. Is it City Mayor or Mayor? Okay.
All right. Anderson for Mayor.
You're confusing me. All right.
Facebook.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm easily confused. All right. Anderson for Mayor on Facebook. You'll find him. Just go out there and take a look at it. And we'll have you back on. I should have asked, when's the Homer municipal election?
It's coming up quick, and a lot of people don't realize this. It's a really important election because there's a hospital bond on it, and then the mayoral election. So even people in the borough will get the ballot just for the hospital bond. But it's October 1st.
October 1st. Okay. Yeah.
Coming up very very quickly.
That's something we should work on. We need to align all these elections so they're all on the same day. I mean, it's just so confusing. All right. Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate you being on board today. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Always good. Always good. Thank you so much for being part of it. All right. Jim Anderson with us here. Let's go on over to the phones and see if we can get Dozer on the line here. Come on. Where's the phone number? Here it is. Let's see if we can get it to work. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It all works the first time. Hey. Look at that. Look at that.
Look at what?
Look at what? It actually worked the first time. That was my comment, that I can't believe that.
I knew when you were ready, you would call me.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, when I asked if you were coming on and you're like, maybe, I was like, well, that's super positive. Thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks for giving me some
positive kind of guy.
Thanks for giving me some stability. And Harold just bit $20 that you wouldn't show again. Harold, how much is that to my house?
How much money does that guy owe you now?
I don't know. It's, I'm just saying, go give it to my house. That's $20 to my house right there. My house in the Matsu. Just call Michelle Overstreet and tell her this is from the Michael Duke Show, $20. And I think that's like, I'd really like to know if he's ever paid even a dime to any of them. Oh, I doubt it. But, maybe. Who knows? We'll have to see. So, you all ready for this thing? You ready for 2 hours or for an hour of what feels like 2 hours?
2 hours
in a 1 hour?
Extended it?
We're going to put 2 hours in a 1 hour sack. How does that feel?
We normally do that at the speed we talk. So yes,
exactly. All right, you're ready. I'm ready. I know my video is still jerky. New computer time, folks. That's all I can say. It's going to be a new computer coming up here. All right. Well, let's get down to it then. We're going to put Mike on hold. Boink. He's on hold. And we're going to continue right now. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Mike Shower is our guest. We continue in just a moment.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, and it is the Wednesday edition of the show. We just finished up with Jim Anderson, who is running for the mayor of Homer. If you missed that, that was a great piece. You can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available wherever podcasts are available, but Spotify is one of my favorites, so you can find it there. You can also, of course, go back and watch it on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble, any of those, and get the full details of that. It was an interesting conversation and a good insight, I think, into what's going on down in Homer. And as I said, if you're living up in the interior, that doesn't mean you can't learn something. Just like we've been talking about interior stuff the last couple of days, folks down in the Mat-Su or the KPB, they could learn from what's going on in the Fairbanks borough as well. Speaking of Fairbanks Borough, tomorrow on the program, Keith Fons is going to be joining us. He is kind of at the heart of this whole Buttgate scandal. He was the one that actually busted the picture out of Bobby Burgess, the school board member, with his backside hanging out. And he's been kind of hounded. He's been hounded on social media, so much so, in fact, that they actually were able to get his page taken down. He's actually been kicked off of social media now. I guess so much for all that belief in free speech and everything. But we'll get Keith Fons' take on everything tomorrow on the program. On Friday, we're working on Dr. John Lott. We'll see if we can get him with us to discuss and more. Meanwhile, let's continue on with today. It is Wednesday, the second hour, and that normally means the Shower Hour of Power, where we spend a full hour with State Senator Mike Shower, who comes in to join us to talk about, well, whatever the hot news of the day is. And there's plenty of stuff, I'm sure, to discuss. And we're just going to kind of let him, I know it's dangerous. I know we shouldn't, but we're going to just let him have a little bit of free reign here and see what he wants to do. So let's jump into it. State Senator Mike Shower, our guest right now on the Michael Dukes Show. Hello, my friend. How are you doing? How's life treating you?
I am very happy to report that I am finally done with my 777 training at FedEx. It has been a very long and painful summer, not because the training was hard per se. I've been doing that for a long time, but I started back in mid-June because I think I told you, FedEx is shutting down the MD-11s up here.
Right.
And they're transitioning over to 777. So I really didn't have a choice. And so I was like, I think, based on my seniority, I can push it off to the fall. Wrong. It's like, I got shit mid-June. I'm like, I just got back from 4 months in Juneau, and now I have to leave for the, good portion of summer. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So anyways, that was, most of my summer was spent going back and forth to Memphis and training. And I just finished yesterday. Finally, all the training is done. So I'm checked out 777 captain. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Off the books. But of course, then I come home and the leaves are on the ground. I'm like, really? Summer's gone. I missed it.
That's it. I missed the whole thing. I missed the whole thing.
I missed the whole 2 weeks of summer, and I was
Yeah.
gone. So yeah. But anyways, I'm, like I said, happy to report that look, my alarm went off. Happy to report that I am done and can focus because there's so much going on. Wanting to help some of these good candidates and help with the Yes on 2 initiative to repeal ranked choice voting. And it's like I've been just completely swamped. So hope the goodness is, what's that? I'm back, baby. So,
That's right. I'm back. I'm back. Ready to go. I'm large and in charge.
That's right. Start focusing again. So
yeah,
yep.
Because it's not going to be too long. Unfortunately, I guess it's not going to be too long before you're going to have to report down to Juneau. What are we? 90 days, essentially, just over 90 days from you having to report back into Juneau. I guess.
Don't say that. Do you hate me? Do you really hate me that much? You just got to make me say it. You just got to make me think about that. Really?
I guess it's I guess it's 120 days. My bad. So it's just about 4 months from now. You're going to be ready to jump into this.
Well, the more important thing is what happens about 6 weeks from now, because that's the telltale for how life is going to be for some of us, at least, and whether or not we're going to have Republicans sticking together in the Senate with a united front and allowing all of us to be in a majority to work towards hopefully some, a lot of common goals, or are we back in a minority based on personalities and how the election goes, and then another 2 years like the last 2 years, which will be fantastic, I might add. So at least I had a lot of gym time.
Look, there's a lot of good candidates out there, and there is an opportunity. And I know we keep saying that this is, that each election is the most important election of our lifetime, but elections do have consequences, and we've got an opportunity here with some new names, changing out some players who maybe are not wanting to play ball. And who aren't, playing well with others, and potentially maybe we can change it so that we solidify the majority in the House and we create a new majority in the Senate that actually includes all the Republicans and conservatives together in one spot. I mean, I'm hoping. I got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping, but we'll have to see what's going on.
It's good to be glass half full, I think, Michael. I mean, I agree with you, and I feel the same way. I get frustrated like we all do on the results and the people that, promise one thing and actually govern differently, when they're no longer in campaign mode. But I as I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, we were talking. I mean, I've never really believed the hype when everybody says, every election is the most important one. I get it. It's the most important one maybe to a candidate or, a person, but I've never really believed that too much. Like I said, the country's kind of muddled its way through, right? We've had a Revolutionary War, a Civil War, a World War II. I mean, we've had plenty of big things that the country has survived. The reason I think this one is probably in the top of that category, say maybe the most important one in some time for us, as I said a few weeks ago, is really specific to Alaska, because Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, has essentially shut this state down. We are a resource state where resource development is, that's what we live and die on here. And he's essentially shut this state down. And for people to say, well, I support Harris, I'm going to vote for Harris. If you live in Alaska, why would you do that? Harris has already said she agrees with his policies and will double down and accelerate them. And so, another 4 or 8 years of Harris administration, which is really a continuation of the Biden-Obama administration, Alaska can't survive that. And so I said, regardless of how it goes nationally, for us, Michael, to support Harris at this point does not make sense from an Alaskan perspective because of what we know she's going to do. That's going to hurt our state economically and our long-term survival. And that's why I say I think this one is so important to us generationally, this particular one. We may or may not have that big of an effect on the nation other than perhaps the congressional seat, because that's going to be pretty tight, for the U.S. Congress. So, picking that up for a Republican with Begich would be very important, I think, and could come down to a couple critical votes. So, yeah, in some ways, when you consider Trump versus Harris and pro-Alaska policies and the tight balance of the U.S. Congress, and having Begich versus Potola going down there, knowing, how that could swing, the country, this may be one of the more important ones for a while. So I don't want to overstate it, but I also don't want people to think, it's just another election.
Right.
Not
No,
really for Alaska this time.
I would agree that it's not just another election. There are definitely some important races out there. But I also said, and I said this, I said this yesterday or day before, or both days, or whatever it was, that, look, if if Harris wins, we will survive. I mean, it'll make it more difficult. There'll be problems and challenges Alaska could suffer. There could be some damage that's done that will take maybe years to unwind. But the bottom line is that we're still going to make it through. And it might have a fringe benefit. And again, I'm not hoping for this. I'm just saying I'm playing the what if game. If she does get elected, it also would have a chance to, again, swing the pendulum harder back the other way, because we've seen that happen. We know that when the government goes full on one side, usually there's a pendulum swing back in the other direction before, trying to overcorrect before we try and find kind of that middle ground again. So it would not be apocalyptic, but it would be tough, but it would not be the end of the world. We will survive. Now, again, not saying that I want that. I'm just saying we have to look at all the outcomes.
Now, again, you and I, we agree on this. I mean, the American DNA almost has that inherently, right? That we go kind of the opposite direction. We don't like it to go too far, too fast. So if one party all of a sudden, like the Uniparty back in 2008, 2 years later, they voted in a strong, Republican majority in the House, which countered the Obama, craziness going far left. So here's where, but I like to do this, and I know we're probably coming up in a break here in a moment, but we will slide this conversation from Alaska and national to international, because you may have noticed some things China's doing, talking about how they're going to, tamp down on rare earths and who they're going to be willing to sell those materials to, i.e. us, right? Their major competitor. And so when you see things going back to like energy production and Gazprom and Russia and their influence on NATO with the Ukrainian war, China with rare earth metals and other things, remember, Alaska on the chessboard is a huge piece if it was used as it should be by our nation, not just for national, right? National defense, for production of certain materials and other things, but for our allies, like a natural gas line or coal that we could be selling and leveraging China, or natural gas to South Korea and Japan. So Alaska is beyond, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Like I said, I think we'll survive, but what they're doing is taking Alaska off the chessboard. They are hurting our allies' ability to leverage their power and us as allies against bad actors like what China does, or Russia, or others. So Alaska is much more important, and strategically, these things take a long time to develop. So if we have 4 or 8 years of a continuing Biden, Harris, Obama administration that is anti-resource development, shuts Alaska down, you're taking one of the major chess pieces off the board that really is important for our nation and our allies internationally. And these are not things, as we can just turn on overnight. We can't just all of a sudden go, okay, Harris is gone. We got a new president that's pro-resource development. Start digging, start drilling, build a gas line. Well, those are years long, 5 years, 10 years to develop and actually bring some of these things online. This is not something we can just turn on. So we should be developing these right now, and we're not under Biden. So anyways, that's why I say a lot of this is very important, but it is Alaska. When you look at the national and the international chessboard, we are a critical piece that is unfortunately not playing the role that it should be for both national and international sovereignty, for development of resources, for stability around the world. We have a much bigger role to play. That's before we even get into the Arctic.
Yeah.
And the passage with naval presence and other things taking place.
Doesn't this all point to one thing, though? I mean, really, because what we're talking about here, doesn't this all point to one thing? Too much interference from the government in every aspect of our lives.
Course.
When we're so dependent on what happens in a federal election for what's going on in the state, doesn't it just point to how much they've inculcated themselves into our lives at every level? I mean, shouldn't we be fighting to reduce some of that interference and things like that? And that, I mean, that to me is what this points to all the time. 1 minute.
Oh, I don't think you're wrong at all. Wouldn't it be nice to see that Elon Musk be in an administration that came in and said, hey, we're going to start getting rid of some of these federal agencies? there's a whole lot of that could be gone, and we muddled along just fine, and we're actually much more prosperous when you look at times before the federal government exploded as far as size, scope, and power, right? When you go back before there was an income tax, before there was a giant military industrial complex. So I don't disagree. I mean, the United States was growing and thriving long before that. And what does government typically do? It regulates and kills things. I mean, it just does. Really good at that, right?
Yeah,
Really good
yeah.
at taxing,
Yep.
regulating, and stifling innovation and growth. Governments throughout history have been really good at that. So, I remember talking about jobs on the floor a couple of years ago. Some senators, I was saying something, and I countered immediately, got up and spoke, and I said, one, the government's not in the market of creating jobs, and two, it's a zero-sum game because you're not creating wealth. You're simply taking it from somewhere else and then putting it into a government job. So you're not making more wealth. You're just kind of removing the money around.
Yeah,
it's different.
Exactly. All right, Mike Shower is our guest. We'll continue with him. Hour 2, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Mike Shower is our guest. Let's see what folks in the chat room are saying here. Elon's more concerned with Mars than our issues. I think Elon Musk is probably a little more multifaceted than that, Harold. I think he probably...
Not only multifaceted, like he can multitask.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
How can I'm like, you really think that guy with his intellect, that dude could probably be doing 100 things simultaneously?
Yeah, no,
come on.
I think he can do. I think he could focus on more than one thing at a time. Brian,
it sounds like bitterness for somebody that can't do that.
Possibly. The bigger danger is the Democrats become more entrenched and an unwillingness of Congress to do their jobs and ensure the agencies are following the law as written. And, that's been a big problem in Congress overall with both Democrats and Republicans, Brian, is this basically they have, given up and ceded their authority to, this is what's been so great about the reversal of the Chevron deference is that, now Congress will actually have to write their laws. They'll actually have to put law in place and then stand by it. See, this has been a way to pass the buck. They just pass the framework. They pass it off to the so-called subject experts in the agencies. And then they said, well, we didn't, that's the agency. That's not us. And they're able to dodge that bullet. This will have to force some accountability on them. Now, will they take back a lot of that authority and do it? I don't know. It just seems like Congress is such an inept body at this point that they can't even see the forest through the trees. They cannot see the end of the tracks coming. They're spending us into oblivion. And again, they would much rather have the bureaucrats deal with a lot of that stuff and be able to pass the buck off on there. But, you're right. But again, this is not just a Democrat thing. This is a politician thing, Mike.
And I don't mean this in revolution, right? Because like Trump always gets taken out of context. A bloodbath. He's going to no. He said a bloodbath in the auto industry, or the debunked Proud Boys. He said there's good Nazis. That he never said that. The lies coming out of the Democrats' mouths and the press and the others is just astounding at the rate we're saying. But when I say revolution, without a revolution in how we govern, a revolution in how we hold our government accountable or actually governance, I don't see how this changes because the state is, and I mean the state from national to local, the state in air quotes is so big and so powerful. Mike, is anybody trying to take it? Who tries to take it on? Who's going to take other? Look, you got a guy like Trump with billions of dollars, right? And Elon Musk, many, many billions of dollars, right? And they're coming after these guys. They're threatening them. Now you got Hillary Clinton out there talking about how we should be putting people in jail for misinformation. Waltz, with the Harris Waltz, ticket is out there saying, that hate crimes and misinformation, you should go to jail. I'm like, well, hey, Timmy, who exactly gets to determine What is a hate crime?
Right.
Who exactly gets to determine what misinformation? That would be you.
Yeah.
Well, what Clinton and Waltz and Harrison, they're really saying is they're saying they want to be able to suppress speech of their political opponents. They want to be able to imprison their political opponents. This isn't about misinformation, Mike. It's about information you don't like.
It's ironic, the misinformation comment from Waltz, especially with this whole stolen valor thing and all this other kind of stuff. Well, I didn't really, it's misinformation. Jeannie says, Mike Shower. Oh, I don't know if you have an answer for this. I mean, I do, but Mike Shower, why do the school boards always put the students and the teachers on the chopping block when they have a budget shortfall?
Because it's emotional. It sells, Mike. It's like the press. If it bleeds, it leads. They can't go out and sell lots of advertisements if they just talk about puppies and everything's going along swimmingly and all is well. Nobody tunes in. Well, if you're going to, and I'll give you an example for her. I think you said it was Jeannie. The example is, why does the Department of Defense always sell like the Chinese, they're 10 feet tall when they're really 5'7"? Because if it sells, it scares people. Fear motivates people to spend money to do things. What did COVID do to so many people? It scared them into giving up their freedoms and power to government officials, et cetera. So you put students and teachers on the chopping block, it scares everybody. And that fear motivates them to take action. It's very simple.
Yeah. No, it's always an emotional cut. We'll always cut the most high visibility, high profile, high pain programs because we're going
Washington Monument.
We're going to punish you for not doing what we said. That's what it's all about. All right, here we go.
Public. The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right, we're continuing. Mike Shower is our guest, the Shower Hour of Power. Mike, you've been watching stuff going on around the state. Has anything caught your eye? What's going on?
Why are you laughing so hard?
I just because I was thinking of your text message the other day. Anything caught your eye?
That's so exciting. Probably, maybe, possibly. Who knows? I don't know.
What are your thoughts about what's going on around the state? Anything else?
Just watching. Honestly, at this point, it's kind of like you're, speaking of airline training or flying training, kind of in a holding pattern, right? You're kind of sitting back and going, okay, who's doing well? How's the polling going? Which ones seem to be winning the races? And like I said, I'm actually, because I'm not having to run in the middle of this 4-year cycle for me, lucky, right? I've been focusing probably the majority of my political attention span, if you want to call it that, towards like the ballot initiatives, primarily number 2, trying to repeal ranked choice voting. So really trying to get a lot of messaging out on radio and social media about yes on 2, vote yes on 2, because as you may be hearing it, and I'm certainly some of your listeners do, that they're already seeing all kinds of confusion, right? Trying to make people think that, well, yes on 2 means you keep ranked choice. No, it doesn't. Yes on 2 means you repeal it. So they're twisting it. And I'm just really trying to focus on that, because I really do believe that particular one is very important to repeal that confusing, complex voter suppression scheme, that's designed to turn a red state purple to eventually blue. We all know that's what it's designed to do. So getting rid of that's very important, I think, for the state. But like I've said before, there's much more at stake here, because this is a national thing. They're using us as the example. And if we can repeal ranked choice voting, it's going to be very difficult for other states to say, no, look, Alaska, like what?
Yeah,
what?
Exactly. Hold us
Alaska
up as a thing.
It?
Well, in some of the advertising they've been doing, the one that gets me is I've been seeing this a lot on YouTube. I watch videos sometimes at night when I get home, and on my TV, I don't have an ad blocker, so I get all the YouTube ads. But the Vote Alaska Before Party people have been putting out this, this whole campaign on vote no on 2. And they highlight it by saying, we eliminated dark money and closed primaries back in the day. And that's how they start the ad, and they set the whole tone about dark money. And then they go on to say, And now they're trying to make primaries closed. Now they're trying to eliminate the open primary. They say nothing else in the whole ad about the dark money, but they tie it to, because that's how they got the thing passed, right? They got the thing passed by talking about dark money. 90% of the ads that they ran were all about dark money. And so they try and tie that. It's there's nothing false in the ad, but it is disingenuous and it's misleading, right? By including dark money in this discussion at the beginning of the ad and then saying, and now they're trying to eliminate it, so vote no on 2. But again, that they're talking about is the closed, or is the open primary. And so it's just this disingenuousness. And it's brilliant from a marketing standpoint, but at the same time, it's just so skeezy to see this kind of stuff go. But that's how they're going to have to play this. That's how they're going to have to win.
Well, there's this old saying Grandma used to have, when somebody's, misleading you or giving you not all the facts or whatever, there's another word for it. It's called lying. So they are lying to you, Mike. They may not be technically in the legal term lying, but you and I both know that this is all about the big lie that sold the original initiative that had 26, I think, individual points in it for that ballot initiative. So they so ridiculously broke the law. I was so disappointed in our legal system when they ruled that no, it's okay, it can move forward on the ballot. I'm like, that's got dark money, it's got ranked choice voting, open primary. This is not one subject. Ridiculously broke what the law says on that you have to have a single subject on a ballot initiative, and they let it go. So, I mean, they've been lying about this, Mike, from the beginning. Let's call it what it is. They're lying. They're lying to the people of Alaska. They're lying about the repeal effort. They're lying about what it does and how good it is. And the fact they're still lying about people like it. A majority of people like. No, they don't. No polling shows that. So this is a big lie. They will use dark money to scare people again. Remember what we just said on the break? Jenny asked the question about that. How come they put teachers and kids always on the chopping block first? Because it generates an emotional response.
Right.
Emotional responses are driven by fear. Fear drives people to do things. If you can tell them dark money, if you repeal ranked choice voting, it's going to bring in dark money. I'm like, they already exempted themselves in the original initiative 4 years ago. They can use the Scott Kendalls and the Alaskans for better life. They can use all the dark money they want. Ironically, Michael, they are using dark money right now. Almost all of the money to save ranked choice voting is dark money from the lower 48.
Right, it's all coming from outside.
Not money from Alaskans.
Yeah, the 535 project and United, all the top 3 donors are all big outside money groups.
Not from here. Over 90% of the millions of dollars they're spending to convince us to keep a voter suppression scheme installed in the state is coming from out of Alaska.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. So I'm spending a lot of time on this one.
Yeah. Well, and then the irony is that the Alaska Democratic Party just spent however many hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting to get this guy off the ballot. And if you read their filings,
confusing.
Their filings go on and talk exactly, well, he'll take votes away from Mary Peltola. We can't have that. Alaskans will be confused. Wait, this is what we've been saying forever. And now you're saying it's not good for you. So you want to challenge it and have it thrown out. You had the opportunity.
It's complex.
You just didn't expect this guy to make it to the top 4. And so that's why you don't have a problem with it up until that point. It is, I mean, the irony is thick on this, right? I mean, this is a huge, huge deal. And they're getting exactly what they wanted. And good, you know what? Good on us. I think
they're getting, in this case, Michael, what they deserve.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of that ultimate karma, the circular justice, where you fight for something when you know it's only good for you while you have it, and then when it's not good for you, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this is an injustice. This thing is terrible. It's confusing and complex. I'm like, that's not what you were saying while it was helping you win. Now that it's going to probably give you a significant political loss, all of a sudden you take the other side. There's another word for that again, Michael. It's called dishonesty, intellectual dishonesty. Most of them know that this is not something that is fair or balanced. They know it does not necessarily put candidates into office that the majority of the people support. They understand that politically it's something that helps them. So yes, they're going to support it while it politically helps them. When it's going to hurt them, what do? They turn to the courts. They use lawfare. They use all the language that we've been using to scare people. It's always about the fear tactics with this. It's about fear mongering because fear motivates people to do something. So that's what this is, Michael. That's what it says. So I was just laughing. Gosh, I was laughing. I think my ribs hurt. I laughed so much when I saw what the Democrats were using for their arguments. I'm like, it's confusing, really? Because I remember Senator Kawasaki on my state affairs committee when we were trying to talk about the repeal of this, just lambasted me and using really inappropriate language on committee, about how it's voter suppression and all this other stuff. We're trying to repeal it when, that we were saying it. And now all of a sudden it's like they're using the same thing. I'm just really, guys. I don't know. I get to sit back and laugh on this one, kind of giggle and go, you guys are getting what you deserve.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, this is not, we're not making this up. I mean, they literally said in these rulings that they would take away votes from their preferred candidate. I mean, that's the insanity. They literally were saying that during this discussion. And I'm like, wait, you guys were the ones that said that having more candidates on the ballot from multiple parties gave people more choice. And so how does this,
as long as it's the Republicans having more choice to split the votes, that's what they meant to say.
Yeah.
I was posting about that earlier this morning about some lady, and she's like a Democrat from, I don't know, the Virgin Islands or something, and she was talking about, she actually had that Freudian slip. She's like, and Trump needs to be shot. I mean, stopped. And everybody's like, what did she just say? And so I posted, and I said, Freudian slip, also known as like paraplaxis or whatever the word is it's when you unintentionally insert something that's a desire or wish of yours subconsciously into your actual speech. That wasn't a misspeak. Your subconscious, that's what you want to happen. So I'm just laughing. It's kind of like that with this one. It's like, no, this is actually what you want to happen until you don't want it to happen. And so it's kind of funny to watch it. It's just, anyways, it is what it is, but it's kind of amusing to see the Democrats now struggling with it because their whole intent all along has been they know this is hard for Republicans because we don't stick together as well. You'll have 2-3 Republicans in the race that refuse to get out, and they'll always just, the Democrats will, be team players with each other, and they'll say, okay, well, I'll step out. Remember the doctor did that a few years ago with the Murkowski, Chewbacca race on that one. So it's just, that's what they do. And I am happy to see a couple things. One of them, that the court case actually broke in our favor, and I think they did rule correctly based on the law, right? What the law says on this one. I'm a little miffed about what's happening with the presidential election because I don't know how they're all going to be on that ballot. I'm kind of, that's not the way our law states it, so I'm still seeing where that's going to go.
Right.
So I am also pleased, though, to see that Republicans are learning how to play the game. Watching Dahlstrom drop out, watching Sharon Jackson and Tom McKay and Kim McCarty and some of these others drop out, James Squires, so that we have, 1v1 races, one Democrat, one Republican. Because if we do that, Michael, we typically can win and do better. But, 2 years ago, we just shot ourselves in the foot, and I'm saying we still have some. We talked about them, I think, a week or two ago on the program. We still have some of the Republicans that are, obviously in it for themselves because the right answer is to get out so that we can hopefully put better candidates, into office, and some of them just won't play that game. But anyway, it's good to see because Republicans have learned. Hopefully, here in 6 weeks, we're going to undo this mistake and we can go back to a common sense voting system, one person, one vote, and something that is simple to understand for people. But we shall see with that one. So I don't know, but it's better. It's gotten better. Republicans have learned. So we're learning how to play the game. Better, which is encouraging.
That is definitely good, where we've seen and we've at least learned that that the conservatives have at least learned that they can't continue to put up multiple candidates. And so it was, again, I was against Nancy Dahlstrom, but in saying this, she did the right thing here, and I applaud her for that, as well as other Sheffield or the the fourth guy. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, all of those folks dropping out, and from every race, we've seen it in several races around the state where Republicans have dropped out so that they're not fighting against other Republicans, and it's left it as just a Republican versus Democrat race. They did the right thing. And I applaud them for that. This is the system we have, and we have to make it work as best we can. And that's what's got the Democrats all in a lather, because they never expected us to be able to put our own self-interest aside and do that. And I think that's a positive force right there. All right, Mike Shower is our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. We got one final segment dead ahead. We will be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Shower Hour of Power continues right here on your home for common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Let's continue on. Mike Shower is our guest. And I do have to comment. Brian wasn't saying Democrats. He said crats, and I thought he meant Democrats, and he was actually talking about bureaucrats. So that makes a lot more sense.
It does.
And then he said, did they really argue that Hafner would take votes away from Nancy's girl? And yes, I was just looking for the quote, but they literally wrote from the appeal. There was a quote. It was either in the Must Read or the ADN, and I can't find it right this second, where they literally said that they were afraid that voters would be confused and that they would take away votes from their preferred candidate, which was for the incumbent, essentially, for Mary Peltola. They literally said that in their arguments before the court.
I know. Right?
Yeah, and it's just like, wow. I mean, that is just
wow. Michael, let's be honest. Did Democrats really care about democracy? What did they just do with Joe Biden? The duly elected nominee for the National Democratic Party. They always threw, Trump pulled a coup. I'm like, no, the Democrats, you guys just pulled a coup. You kicked out the duly elected nominee for your party because you didn't think he could win, and you installed somebody else. That's what dictators do. That's what they did. So when they try to say they're all about democracy, whatever, I'm like, no, you're not. You guys are the furthest thing from democracy.
They didn't even,
not even close.
They didn't even hold they didn't even actually hold an election for her as the nominee. There was no
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There was no democracy with the Democrats in the United States today. Michael, they installed their own dictator. They just put her in. Crazy.
Yeah. No.
They literally continue to accuse Republicans of doing what they do on a daily basis. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it is. It's kind of nutty. It's kind of nutty for sure. We'll see.
I was going to say something real quick there while you're on it, but you made this comment before about you weren't you were against Nancy in a way, but I know what you mean by that. And I try to tell people too, look, when we do this is not, because I supported Begich. Michelle and I vetted him, spent a lot of time with Nick. I do think he's the real deal. I believe that. I might have been the first, if not one of the first legislators to endorse him and support him back in the day while Don Young was still alive. Not because I was ever, against Don Young. I was pro Begich. I wasn't against Nancy. I consider Nancy a friend. I was pro Begich before, Nancy dropped, or got into the race. So the point of it, Michael, is we can all disagree respectfully. And I can support somebody, but that doesn't mean I don't like or not support the other person in that particular case. As Republicans, where we stand and go, you know what, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to, I'm going to get out of this race, right? But you're doing that thing, and it's not because you're against somebody else. It's because you may support somebody else more, or you supported them first. Like in Nick's case, I shook his hand and said, I support you. And then other people jumped in the race. They go, well, I'm not going to back out. I shook a man's hand. That's honor. I need to honor that commitment. And so we've got to get away, I think, sometimes from thinking, well, if you support this one, then you just don't like that one or you're against them. That's not true.
No, I mean,
not true at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, it wasn't that I didn't like Nancy. Maybe I misspoke. It's just I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Yeah,
I'm just making a point out of it. That's all.
No. Look, I didn't know her. I didn't, again, she was kind of a non-person to me as far as I have no interaction with her. Not familiar with anything that she was passionate about. I just supported Nick. And I thought that, that from outside forces, because she was being supported by the national RNC, that they were trying to spoil this. I wasn't mad at her specifically. I'm just saying she did, but I wanted to give kudos where kudos due. She did the hard thing. The hard thing was to pull out of the race,
And what would have happened, Michael, had Nick been number 3 and dropped out like he said he would, and I believe he would have. Do you know what I would have done? I would have been, oh my God, my candidate's that I'm taking my toys and I'm going home. I would have gone, you know what? Nancy's the one. I'm now behind her, and I would have given her all my support, because that's what we do to win. We don't take our toys home when we don't get our way. We don't jump up and down and scream about it. We need to be adults. And we go, you know what? I supported the other one. My candidate didn't win, but here's the other one. Now I'm going to get behind that one. That's what we do if we want to win. And we are infamously terrible at doing that. I am, like I said, happy to see that as Republicans, we seem to be getting a little smarter and a little better about realizing that we're going to have to, not always get our way 100% of the time, but this is how we're going to win and keep Democrats from turning us into crazy land.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I am happy that so many Republicans around the state decided to do the right thing and make it a one-on-one race versus this 2-on-1, 3-on-1 kind of madness. So,
indeed.
All right, we're going to continue here. Mike Shower is our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share. Please like and subscribe wherever you're at. Share this. There's only 20 people have liked this, and there's 60 of you in the chat room. Come on, what's up with that? Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? I don't know. Haters gonna hate. What are you gonna do? Let's get to it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
I mean, I hate to break it to him, but it actually means what I do think it means. Proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Mike Shower, who's busting the dichotomy, and he can spell it too. Let's continue on. Mike, one final segment for today. What's important? What do you want to leave people with this week as they go about their work week and doing what thing? What are, give us your thoughts here on the final segment of the program for today.
If people think that this is an important election, look, they're all important in their own way in time for things happening. But like I said, some, as we discussed, this one is probably for our state and maybe in a bigger scale, more important than the average election. I'm just asking you to do something. You may not have a lot of financial resources. You may not have a lot of time, et cetera, et cetera. But Michael, it's like, what's the saying? It's like, many hands make small work, or, something like that.
Many hands, they make light work, right? Yeah.
Make light work, yeah. And so I haven't had my full cup of coffee yet. So not firing on all cylinders, believe it or not. So, but when you have 1,000 people listening to your program, or 5,000, or whatever it is, and if every one of them just did one thing, I mean, at a minimum, at least please go vote, right? And try to influence your circle of friends and family and get them to vote, and try to help them understand what the issues are, and go, hey, vote yes on 2. You don't like this crazy ranked choice voting. Hey, get in your social media circle and your family, say, hey guys, vote yes on 2, because I know there's a lot of confusion. We still get it. So I guess if I was going to leave people with anything, and I'm going to do this every week for the next 6-7 weeks until it's over, is continually ask people, do something. At least go vote, take a friend with you, or a family member, or make sure your kids, because we had to hound our kids to get them to vote, right? They're resistant and whatever. And so we made sure they voted in this last election. We kept hounding them until they finally said, fine, we'll go vote. Okay, good. Well, I would ask you to do something. Go vote at a minimum, take somebody with you, influence your circle, spread yes on 2, stuff if you believe in that and repealing it. maybe just give small amounts, Michael. I mean, if you're not doing well in resource, but you can give 10 or 20 bucks, give 10 or 20 bucks to your favorite candidate, because if 100 people, give that kind of money, $25, where you're starting to talk enough money that it's making a difference, where they can buy some more radio ads or some digital time, where they can make a difference. So, if you got more time, certainly volunteer. Coming up here soon, it's going to be street corner time, where they have the signs, and you're out there, for a couple hours during rush hour in the morning and the evening, hold the signs up. Maybe walk a few neighborhoods. I mean, we had people that would volunteer just one weekend, commit one weekend, one full day on a Saturday or something, and go with a candidate and go walk neighborhoods, because when it's one candidate with one or two people, it takes a long time. You can get 6 or 8 volunteers, Michael. You can cover a couple neighborhoods in a couple hours, and hand out some flyers and say, hey, you got any questions? Here's what this candidate believes. I mean, I know I'm talking a lot on this particular topic, but that is what you can do, because people always ask, they're frustrated, they don't want to get involved. Well, what can I do? Actually, you can do something, and you might be surprised what your little effort might bring when 1,000 people say, I'm going to do a little bit of something. But when 1,000 people don't do it, Michael, and only 1 or 2 or 6 people do it, they have an overwhelming task in front of them. Right. I mean, we had lots of people step up 2 years ago, said, oh, we'll help you. We'd normally we'd have like 2 people show up, and we're walking, thousands of houses and neighborhoods trying to do stuff and cover a district the size of West Virginia. And, people talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And yeah, that's a little bit of criticism. But when people say things, that the first question I ask them, did you vote? Well, no, then shut up. I got nothing for you. Don't complain. You didn't get involved at all.
Right.
And I literally don't even want to talk to you right now. Don't. And so, but if you at least go vote, you did your duty. Okay, so now we can talk. And if you did a little bit more, because the people that really complain a lot, I'm like, well, what have you done? Have you held signs? Have you made calls for people? Have you donated any amount of time or money to this? Have you walked a neighborhood? Have you gone to a town hall or a candidates meetings where they come in and meet and greet so that you can ask questions? So, if you complain, then complain after, you are involved in the process. If you're not going to do anything but get on the radio and make snarky comments, then just stop. You're not helping. So, anyways, that's my pitch to people, not to throw spears at them, just say, just do something, anything at all. And frankly, Michael, the thing with influencers, right? They're always talking influencers. We all have some influence. Most of the people that you're listening to this program and commenting, they have a social media presence, even if it's small. Get on there and spread things about repealing ranked choice voting. Spread some things about the candidates that you prefer that have, if they were already an incumbent, what their record is. If they're a new candidate, what they promised to do. Like I said, it just, get a couple thousand people, start getting involved. That's what grassroots are.
Well,
and we can make a difference.
I mean, we say on the program all the time, I mean, government is what happens to you when you stop paying attention. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, if you refuse to participate for whatever reason, whether I'm too busy or it doesn't matter, or my vote doesn't count, or I'm so pissed off about all the fracturing and all I'm so mad about it. I'm just not going to participate. Well, then you get exactly what you deserve for. And you should shut your pie hole about complaining if you're not going to participate in the process and make it work. I can complain all I want because I still vote. Does my candidate win? No, not normally, but I at least got my voice out there and we could still offer solutions.
You were involved.
Yeah, we got involved.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the thing. We can't grow weary in well-doing. We just can't do that. We've got to keep going. Yes. Is it tiring? Yes. Is it frustrating? Yes. Does it make you angry? Absolutely. But you've got to do what you can do. And but with these people who say, well, I'm just not going to, again, I keep pointing out, we had Tammy Wilson on the other day. She lost her election for borough mayor about 15 years ago. She lost it by 12 votes in the borough. And there's been other ones, right? I mean, the Catherine Dodge Bart LeBon race for state house in Fairbanks, 1 vote. And how many times have they flipped a coin on the North Slope, right? There's been several times where there's been votes on the North Slope literally decided by a coin toss because it was a dead heat. I mean, so don't tell me your 1 vote doesn't count. Get involved, do what needs to be done, drag people with you. Like you said, chivvy your kids. I've had to do the same thing. The kids are like, well, I don't know. Well, here, I'll give you a list. You go vote. if that's what you
You
need.
know what they're counting on, Michael?
What?
They're counting on 10 million Americans to say my vote doesn't count. That's what they're counting on. They're counting on 10 million involved Americans that love this country that would vote for the appropriate candidates that do still love this country and don't seem to hate it. They're counting on 10 million, or pick the number. They're counting on all those Americans say my vote doesn't count, because it's not just one person. It's 10 million or 20 million or 20 million Christians in the last election cycle that said that they stayed out of the election and didn't bring their moral values to the ballot box. So when we start discussing this and one person, well, my vote doesn't count. Well, that may be true for you, but the problem is when you and 10 or 20 or 30 million other Americans think the same way, then it does count.
Right.
Because then you all stop being involved, and that's the problem.
Yeah, well, and that's the danger of, any kind of problem with the electoral system, or even a perceived, whether it's a true problem or not, the perception makes people distrust the system, and then they throw their hands up and do the same thing. That's why it's so important to have secure, solid elections with no questions. If there is a question, you look into it, you prove it, you fix it, you restore confidence, because that's part of the problem as well.
I agree with that, as you all know, because I've been working on that for some time, and we were close to getting something a few years ago, but not yet. We'll keep trying.
Absolutely.
I will tell you this. There is one last thing I'm going to put out there, because I did try
2
a couple
minutes.
years ago.
2 minutes.
I know. I'll be done.
All right.
In 119 seconds, I'll be done. So, Kelly Shubak and I worked on this. We had the legislation filed, but she used to do inspector general type work when she was 3-letter agencies back in DC. And I saw that in the military a lot. And we had that independent inspector general that had the authority and funding and charter to be able to investigate fraud, waste, abuse, other allegations outside of the chain of the command. The 4-star chief of staff could not tell that 2-star what to do, because that would have defeated the system. And we had something set up in a bill that we were trying to move, didn't get it through the Senate. Of course, who wants, to have the spotlight shined on them, right? But I'm going to reintroduce that, and we're trying to rewicker it to something with some help and other people that are going to get involved to go back to the same thing. I think one of the things Alaska needs is who's watching the watchers, and having an independent elected, so it's not appointed by a governor, who right now everybody in the state works for the governor in the administration, including law enforcement, an independent elected inspector general modeled after the U.S. military's model that would give us some authority and ability to be able to go after fraud, waste, and abuse, election issues, whatever they are. I'm going to try that again and see. I'm going to keep pushing for it, Michael, because I do think other states have similar, and the military has it in others. And I think that would be helpful to have somebody we can turn to, some agency that has the charter, authority, and funding to be able to look at things happening in the state independently, without having to worry about what a governor or legislature tries to make them do or not do. And so I don't know. I'm going to try that one too, because just like we had the conversation about sheriffs, and I'll end on that for time. Pros and cons to both, but when you have an elected sheriff, you have somebody to turn to. That's oath has to be to upholding the law, and we don't have that in this state either. So there's some things we can look at changing, I think might give us some positives moving forward. We'll have to see. All
right. Well, Mike Shower, thanks for coming in. As always, it's educational and fun. It's a fast hour for sure. Mike Shower, State Senator, District O. Tomorrow, Keith Fons will be joining us on the program, and we'll be talking about what's going on up at Fairbanks with freedom of speech and the school board and everything else. That should be fun. Mike, thanks so much for coming on board.
Of course, we'll go to next week, probably.
Probably, maybe. He's so exact about it. All right, folks, we got to go. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. All right. One final bite there, Mike. Anything else?
No, I think that's the right place to end, is just talking about, hey, the next session, what are we looking at, and possibilities of things. And I do think that trying to go, I will continue to try to find some smaller, cleaner election things that I think we need to do, like voter roll cleanup, and see if we can get something through. I will continue to push for some judicial change to go back to our Constitution, which the state Constitution says the lower courts are supposed to be appointed, not by the Judicial Council and by the Alaskan Bar Association, which is like a self-licking ice cream cone. I mean, that's going to be a tough lift, I know, but I'm going to try. But that Inspector General, having that who's watching the watchers is important, I think, to the accountability and transparency of good governance.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to reintroduce that this time.
Yeah.
Work on some things like that, and we'll see. But that's probably as good as any. The most important thing between now and then is, one, repealing ranked choice voting by getting everybody to vote yes on 2 for the future of the state, and hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that we can get some new personalities in the legislature that will allow us to unify and move forward on some of these more common goals as Republicans and right of center, if you will. So that's where we are. We're 6 or 7 weeks holding pattern, but get involved, folks. Do something. Help some candidates. Spread the news. Yes on 2.
Yeah.
You can make a difference.
No, more transparency in government is a good thing. I mean, we should have, our grand juries. We should have inspector generals. We should have that ability, because government does a lot of stuff in the dark, quiet places, and that's a dangerous thing. That is a dangerous thing, and we do not need that at all. So you're right. Anything that helps with that is a pleasure. All right, Mike, thanks so much for coming. We'll talk to you next week, maybe, possibly. Good Lord.
Yes, it's absolutely in stone.
Maybe.
In Jello.
Schmaybe. It's a schmaybe.
It's a schmaybe. There you go. I like it.
It's a schmaybe. All right. Thanks, my friend. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for coming on board. All right, folks, we are done. We're out of time for today. Tomorrow is another one. Looking forward to that for sure. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good one. We'll see you then.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.